Hello and welcome back to Journey Saga, and we are immediately greeted by Hunt showing off a bull elk skull I had previously forgotten about. My name is Rossi, and we unfortunately lost the audio for most of this video, so I will be doing a voiceover format again. Please give me feedback on how you like this new format, as I actually do appreciate it a lot. To give a quick review though, last time we moved the pups out here to an open den out on a hill, and in general we kept up the balancing act that we needed to do in order to keep everyone safe and happy, much of which was just fighting off our neighbors. Here's a quick recap on where the pack currently is. We do have some yearlings and subordinates getting pretty hungry. Our pups themselves are all hovering around the 10 to 12 pound range, most in the early 11s there, and they're slowly gaining experience, but urgently we do need to hunt sooner than later. And here's our territory. It actually doesn't look too bad, all things considered. Up in the northwest, it would be, we're looking pretty low, as well as immediately to the south of us, but everything to the northeast and east is pretty strong right now, so we're actually doing okay there. I did want to expand a little bit into the Pleasant Valley section just so we could get more of a buffer zone around our actual home hex. But I was just debating the efficacy of doing that when we really needed to go in the exact opposite direction to maintain what we had. Despite the ongoing Hex invasion, the need for food was stronger than the need to defend our territory. And so, despite exhaustion, I set out to hunt, taking whoever would come with me. We soon came across a buck mule deer, and since we were tired, I had to get up a rally before we were finally able to bring it down. And the humans in their plane actually came by to watch the show, so I think it gave them quite a little bit of entertainment. I then also recognized that there were some birds swarming high up on the hill above us, and not wanting to miss out on an opportunity, I decided to check it out. But first, since we had strayed off of our territory, I claimed the hex from Pleasant Valley, and this in turn also gave us a bigger buffer for our own territory at the same time. Once I followed the birds to their source, and at times they were kind of clipping through the ground, I found a cow elk carcass, which was a prize very worth the detour, but it was guarded by an angry wolverine. The wolverine put up quite the fight, and it did eventually go away, but that allowed us to fill up to full with relatively minimal costs and bring back a chunk for the rest of the family. We eventually made it back to the family and went through the usual routine of throwing up to feed the pups. By this point, I had no wakefulness, so I went pretty directly to sleep afterwards. When I woke up, I checked out the territory and decided that while it wasn't great, it wasn't awful either, and so in a rare moment, I opted to play with the pups. That boosted both their experience and affinity before I went back to sleep. When I woke up from dreams, I was greeted with the Hunt Newborn Ungulates quest. I remember I spent a fair bit of time complaining about the quest and how it isn't as useful to larger packs, but that it was still a good notification to have. I then noticed pretty immediately Destiny was acting a little bit more alert than usual, so I went into sniff cam and smelled some coyote scent. I started to howl to see if the coyotes were actually after us, immediately triggering a den attack anyway, where we were immediately attacked by no less than 6 coyotes. I immediately went on the defensive, standing over where the pups were trying to get into the den. It got dicey whenever more than one coyote approached, but I stood my ground and my packmates did well fending them off. Of course, Hermes decided not to go into the den, and rather than try to fend off several coyotes when there was only one of me, I picked him up instead. That seemed to help, but despite being gone, the attack was still underway, so I figured I'd still have to chase the coyotes away. And luckily, once Hermes was in the den, I was able to do so, and everything turned out okay. Immediately after the attack, some of the subordinates set off while I was taking stock of everything. They were too hungry to stick around, which was ultimately okay with me since I needed to go out and reinforce the territory instead of focusing on hunting. Their departure did put me in a bit of a weird spot since I had summoned everyone else and was therefore left without a babysitter. Resolving to be quick, I set off marking and aimed to hunt along the way. I found a few calves pretty quickly, but Dalinar hogged them all, so I sent him back home to watch and feed the pups. I was getting pretty worried about the other subordinates as time wore on, and their hunger bars just kept dropping. I wasn't sure at what point they would actually start to starve, and if they were across the territory, I couldn't immediately offer them any help. All the same, I chose to focus on taking care of my splinter group first and foremost, and that meant scouring for all of the baby ungulates. Elk, pronghorn, and deer were all no match for me. As I was showing off my smallest catch and wondering if going after pronghorn was even helpful at all, I got the notification that we were under attack by another pack. I could deduce that the attack was to the northwest, but I couldn't determine if it was Grizzly Rock or Pleasant Valley as the instigators, just due to the angle we were at. I scarfed down the meal to top up my own hunger, and I caught another fawn on the way back to the den. I decided since we were already back there that I would just leave it for whoever may need it most later, be they pups, yearlings, subordinates, or Dalinar. While I was happily greeting my pack and marveling at how big a glutton Dalinar is, I got the notification that Rome had lived up to his name and wandered away. I woofed the other pups to get back into the den so no one would get confused, and I set out to find him. All the usual tricks were fruitless, however. Howling got no response, and there were so many puppy prints to follow, and yet none seemed to be the correct trail. Luckily, though, I finally did find his track and found him at the bottom of the hill, sprinting away from me at full tilt. He luckily hadn't gotten too far, but I sent him into the den so I could go deal with the invasion without any further worries. I actually ran into our wandering splinter group along the way, and I recruited them for the mission after giving all of the proper hellos. It wouldn't be me unless I tripped over a few more calves along the way, which I happily gave to the rest of the pack. I also spent some of my precious time in wakefulness marking our current territory up along the way, since it had grown so weak in this entire section. By the time we made it up to the northern border, the Hex invasion had gone away, as had all of my remaining wakefulness. Nevertheless, I chose to dive into Grizzly Rock territory, seeking to claim back what they had stolen. They were pretty weak before, after all. I figured I had the ability to do so. I was then surprised when a much bigger pack than I had anticipated came to greet me. We had reduced their numbers so significantly before, and suddenly they went from only 1 leader and 3 or so yearlings to over 5. It looked like they had a new male leader, but to my knowledge, they shouldn't have blended a family like that. It's possible they still had some subordinates that just were always very lazy and which never came around before, but I was still surprised by the sudden influx of numbers and suddenly doubting if I could bully them around on 0 wakefulness. Never one to back down, however, I pushed through, with the intentions of bringing their numbers back down to size, one way or another. I attacked the first female I came across, 1414F, who happened to also be the weakest in the pack, with health that was already below 50%. I pursued her relentlessly, but inefficiently since I had no stamina. She was saved by the border, however, as she could cross it to safety while I could not follow her. Frustrated, I tried to keep fighting the rest of Grizzly Rock at the border, to mixed effect. They did not want to surrender, but I couldn't make as much headway without any stamina to really bite down. Nonetheless, we eventually prevailed. As we were celebrating, I saw 1414 coming back down the hill, but she fled when she saw me coming back for her. After that interaction, I bided my time, waiting for her to return as she would eventually have to do so. Sure enough, she and her family returned to the bounds of the map a little ways away from our pack. This sparked an extended but vicious attack, eventually leading to her death on the hexes that her family stole from us, which I then reclaimed. I took back all the hexes at that time, despite our continued exhaustion, since I figured we were already up there and doing the thing anyway. Afterwards, tired and a little bruised, I returned to our pups. When we got back to the den, I fed the pups and tried to get our affinity up as quickly as I could, since we were exhausted and pretty weak to any possible den attacks, especially since our affinity was also very low. I went right to sleep right afterwards, and I woke up to the scent of coyote. Paranoid since we were overdue for an attack, I woofed right away, thus triggering the coyotes to attack. The same 6 coyotes attacked us again, but luckily the pups all went into the den without a problem, leaving me open to the offensive. It was still pretty nerve-wracking seeing so many coyotes running around and over the entrance to the den, but myself and Shalyn both took turns guarding it, and eventually we were able to drive the coyotes away. I called out the pups and went right back to sleep, waking up to, you guessed it, another hex invasion. I still decided to leave the episode off here anyway, and this was when I finally realized my mic was muted the whole time. Alright, well the mic has been muted for I don't know how long. This might be a pure voiceover episode. That's fun. Well, shoot. I think Pleasant Valley is invading us over here. I don't really care, to put it bluntly, at this particular moment. I've been recording for a while, and I don't know how many issues, if any, we're going to encounter. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it off here. Hopefully only the last little bit was muted, but I have a sneaking suspicion this is going to be a full voiceover episode, so sorry about that, but I do hope you all enjoyed it anyway. So until next time, everybody, stay safe, stay happy, see y'all next time, and bye! And of course, thank you as always to Parental Unit for supporting the channel, as that support is greatly appreciated.